down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. Thank you for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman. Happy New Year. And as always, my mission this year is going to be to help you develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind great photographs. So as always, gang, before we get started, please do me a favor. Take a moment, tell your photography friends that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. Facebook, Twitter, they are the fastest way to get the word out. You can click the link that's right underneath the video, or I'm going to go ahead and I will share the link in the chat window here for you. It's tog.chat/live. So let people know. And we've got a lot of people checking in here from all over the world. So do me a favor, make sure you say hi, leave a comment, tell us where you're from. I know Jeff's here, Perlugi's here, Adam's here, Andrew, Pateo, Susan, Steve, Carl, a lot of the regulars, some new names that I haven't seen before. Great to meet all of you. And of course, make sure you start posting your questions for tonight's discussion. As always, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can during our 90-minute, 1-hour show. And if you've been here before, well, then that made sense, right? So I don't want to waste any time, gang. There's a bunch of announcements in that I can give you, but I'm going to give you them at the end tonight. So make sure you stay tuned because there's some cool information that I have for you later. But I've got a very special guest, and I want to jump right to it. So if you saw my social media post today, my guest tonight is another Olympus visionary, Mr. Mike Boening from Detroit, Michigan. And I am about to bring Mike in here, and you know what? I lost Mike. That's not good. Uh-oh. So I'll tell you what here, gang. You gotta love technology at its finest. So let me clear that. I'm gonna come back to there. Give me just 1 second and let's see if we can get Mike back here, okay? And we had him and he disappeared. All right, so let's try that. And all right, so bear with me there, gang. Hopefully we're gonna get him back here in just a second, okay? And so, good way to start the new year. We're going to have a technology issue here, but that's all right. We'll get this worked out. I'm going to give Mike just one more second here to log in, and if not, I'll go ahead and I'll start on some of your questions. But Andrew, no, he's not in a motel room tonight. He is actually in his home base. We're just going to wait for him to get logged back in here. And I'm just waiting for his little icon to pop up and we will try this out again, okay? So I'll tell you guys what, while I am waiting, let me tell you about this. If you're going to PPA, and I hope some of you are going to go to the PPA event, Imaging USA, that's happening in Atlanta the end of this month, okay? The 20th, 21st, and 22nd. I hope to see you there. I will be there presenting for Olympus, not on the Olympus stage, but I will be presenting for a platform talk while I am at Imaging USA. It's all about personal branding, okay? So bear with me 1 second here, gang, and we're gonna try this one more time here, okay? There we go. There he is. Okay, so I've got him back here now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's switch things over and get Mike into our stream here, gang. Okay, so, all right, and there we go. All right, gang, hey. Mike Boening, how are you, Mike? I don't know.
I'm doing great.
I don't know what went wrong there. I don't know if I hit the wrong button or what happened.
It's 2019.
Suddenly you did. You just disappeared on me there. So anyway, so listen, gang, as always, I don't want to tell you all about Mike. I want to let Mike tell you about himself and introduce himself. And then we're going to take a look through some of his images. And already I see there's a lot of really, really great street photography questions, which is one of the many things that Mike is known for. So Mike, if you could, tell my followers and my viewers a little bit about who you are and what you shoot.
Absolutely. Well, first off, fantastic. Thank you for having me on and kicking off the new year. What a great way to,
My pleasure.
kick off 2019. Love some of the comments coming in already. So I'm real excited to get to those. But yeah, so street photography, definitely one of my mainstays, let's say. I guess you can trace that all back to going through high school, and then I went off to college for journalism. And as of course you would, normally say, nothing actually happens the way you would hope it would when you're in college and you're going for something. Plans change, kids come along, all the other things that happen. So never really went into journalism. I always thought I'd be that person, working for the newspaper, out reporting on the front lines and that. But so fast forward, maybe throughout my life, I guess I always kept a camera in my hand because I was always around cameras. My uncle, who has a studio here in Metro Detroit for almost 50 years now, he's still working at it in his 70s, and just grew up in the dark room, which was inside the house, and he showed me everything. And so I've always been shooting. And when the kids come along, you love to take pictures of the kids and everything like that. So but there's a big span in there. About 19 years go by, and I was just deep into coaching basketball. So this won't be a basketball show, but we could always talk about that. And then all those contacts kept going and rolling. The kids finally went off to college and played basketball in college. And I started shooting for colleges. So and that's like you, I was a Nikon shooter till about 2012. And that's when I started getting into a lot more street photography, found myself, boy, this is a heavy camera to be carrying around in the street. Yep. Knew about the EM5, and I picked up the EM5 in 2012 and really never looked back. And as time would have it and it goes on, I got more and more involved with Olympus, very social, and met Jamie, who you had on a few weeks ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Jamie and I, actually, we were friends online for, I'm almost going to say, a year or more before we ever met each other. And we're only an hour and a half away. We were just goofing around online saying, hey, you want to do a podcast one day? And we said, yeah, all right. That sounds like cool. It sounds like fun. We'll just sit around and talk like Wayne's World, from our little rooms inside. His wife's sewing room and my daughter's old room that she used to be in.
Uh-huh.
And so that Olympus came along about 3.5 years ago, noticed what I had done, really didn't have a street photographer per se in the visionary program. Right. And one thing led to another. So been with the visionary program now about 3.5 years.
Very cool.
And that's a quick way through it, but that's how.
Hey, that's great. So one of the best ways for us to actually show people what you do is to jump into some of your images. So
exactly.
I'm gonna switch my screen over here really quick.
Well, and there's a reason I sent this to you, Joe. Okay. So this image, I won't be able to tell you any EXIF data at all because I have no idea. This is what started, which is so cool in my mind, is that I have the picture that started my love for photography.
That's very cool.
And this is it. When I was 10 years old, taken with some type of film camera. I'm sure that my uncle just said, here, go shoot. And I captured this, and I couldn't tell you exactly how I did it perfectly at 10 in my mind, but I was watching some jumpers. My dad's over here on the right, and this is, I think that's his aunt who is jumping out of a plane for her 50th birthday or something. But caught this and ended up sending it into Detroit News in a contest, got second place. I go, I like this photography stuff. So that got the bug going, I think, from
cool.
10 years old. So yeah, that's my intro to photography, I always say.
That's awesome. So now, is this a transparency or is this a negative?
That's a negative. Just
a negative?
Negative, yeah.
Very cool.
That's a scan negative.
Very cool. All right. So something a little more current.
Yeah, a little bit more current. And this obviously, if you know it, you may not know it, but that's the skyline of Detroit, my hometown, Detroit. And like I said, I was born and raised here in Detroit, but also have lived in 7 different states, or, you know, within about a 10-year period, moving around from the company that I worked for back then. So I've been all over the country, actually. But this is one of those shots from the Canada side, so taken from a different country of the Detroit cityscape, and just a great. This was actually before the 4th of July fireworks that we have here, and this one ended up. It's a special picture to me because I ended up getting it Pure Michigan. I don't know if you guys see any Pure Michigan ads in. You know, in Pennsylvania or anything like that, but I know they're around. But, yeah, but
cool.
it's their ad campaign to get people to Michigan. Awesome. They picked this up, and it was a billboard campaign for about a year.
Very cool.
So that was really cool. Just one of those special pictures, a great moment, you know, out on the water in Canada.
Awesome. So this was a while ago. So do you remember which body you shot this on?
I do, so I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. Okay.
Let's just put it this way. It was in 2011.
Oh, okay. So, well, that's all right. So it was pre-Olympus days. That's all right. No problem.
It was pre. Okay. Yeah, it was a Nikon something 600 or something. I can't remember. You see what happens? I've erased my memory.
That's all right. How far along? You know, ironically, you say that. I'm very similar. Like people ask me stuff about the Nikons, and I'm like, wait. I have to go back. I have to try and think. It hasn't been that long, but so I am curious though. This will be our last Nikon discussion. How far along did you get in this? Like, what was the last Nikon body that you used?
The D8, was it the full frame?
800.
D800. D800.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now let's fast forward a little bit and get into a live composite shot that I love. Two things about this, and we can talk about the background of it too. But the Pen F, absolutely my favorite camera from a street photography standpoint. And I was selected to test that camera for Olympus months and months before it was released, and traveled to Chicago and New York and San Francisco with it.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it was really special. I mean, I was brought into a back room, and it was all covered in black. And you know, I said, now don't, no one knows why you're here, and leave quick. But so that's actually my daughter over here.
Okay.
on the left. I had to bring her around because, unlike you, I probably didn't have a lot of contacts for models at the point. So I said, hey, you could come with me on all these trips, and we'll put you in. So when you got a 20-something daughter, that worked well for her. But the Chicago Theater, you know, classic. You were there last year out of Chicago, weren't you?
I was there last year, and because of you, I made the trek to this theater to try live composite for the very first time.
Well, that's interesting. That's cool. Yeah. The live composite mode, you know, here is just amazing if you get the right mix of buses and stuff that come through, like it is here. And I also did one other thing in this while it was going, which was about a minute's worth of, we'll call it live composite exposure time. I light painted my daughter there, who was, you know, a little bit darker. I just didn't want her silhouetted. So, you know, you can do a couple things while things are happening with live composite. You know, just keep introducing new happenings of light as it goes by. And buses are the best. You know, when I teach live composite, I absolutely love, you know, when buses come by, as long as they're not white buses and they give the big blur, definitely worth it. But this is shot with actually shot with the EM1, not the Mark II, but the or actually the Pen F. I'm sorry, the Pen F on this one. I've got two really nice Chicago ones. But this is the Pen F, and it would have been with the probably 12 to 40 when I had this on there.
Beautiful image. I love that image.
Yeah. And another one of my favorite places for live composite, and Jamie and I did a workshop there 2 years ago now, or last year we did it, and that was in Atlanta. They have the best bridge for setting up, and if anybody, you know, in here, it's the Jackson Street Bridge, but if anybody needs exact, you know, coordinates, they can always message me or whatever. I give you exactly. I'm not one of those people that are ever going to hold that stuff back. I mean, we want people to be able to take great photos, and get in the right places. But this bridge lines up, and it was one of the nights that we were lucky enough. This was with an EM1, and this one was the 12 to 40 as well, actually. And one of the nights there's street lights that aren't here. They're here, but they're not on. I mean, I could have. Somebody who knows me wondered if I had a BB gun, and I took them all out. But when the street lights were out, I didn't. It was just an amazing, amazing time, because the street lights really mess up the shot.
Right.
And when you can get this, great in and out of the city like that in Atlanta, a lot of fun. And again, this is shot with live composite. I'm going to say this is probably about a minute long, and that I kept the exposure up. And we went for aperture probably about, because this is a little, still got some sun out there. We were probably at a F11, F13. So that we could get some of the lights in, and as well, we had a couple people with me that night, shooting. But and I heard Jamie's interview, and we do live composite exactly the same way. I set it up in aperture priority to find out where my f-stop's going to be, and then I jump back into manual, throw it into live composite, and go back. And when I set my, when I set the aperture, that's where I'm starting there, and then I tweak from there. I don't do a lot of gymnastics. I try to make it as simple as you can to get it going.
Yeah, I love this shot. Absolutely love it.
Yeah,
and then these incredible views that you've got.
Oh, and this is another one. And in fact, I've got to stop shooting this one. I hate to say it like that. Every time I go to Austin, this is in Austin, and this is the 360 bridge, or the Pennybacker Bridge.
Got it.
Colorado River running through there. You got to climb, I wouldn't call it a mountain. I would just call it a bunch of rocks and hills, about 200 feet to get up there. Maybe it's 150 or so. And you get up above the bridge, and as long as you can get there just after rush hour as the sun's setting, you'll get some nice movement. If you get it in rush hour, it can be really tough, because everybody's stopped. And the lights just become a big blob of red and white coming at you. Yeah. So, but this is just such a great shot. And on the other side of the road, there's actually the other side of the mountain's got a great old crooked tree that you can put into the into the shot and shoot the other way. But when you got sunset, you want to capture some of that in there, and that's why I did that. Again, now this one is with the EM1 Mark II, and this would have been with the 12-100 lens by the time this came out. Yeah, love that shot.
And this is one of my favorite shots, Mike. I love
this is, and I wasn't really, following your Olympus work, because you weren't doing any Olympus work when I took this. But now this is my Joe Edelman shot. I tell people. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of, but with your girl with the balls and all that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
This has got such a like a Joe Edelman feel to me. So this is we have this city, and a lot of cities do this. It's a small town, Rochester Hills, that puts Christmas lights. They just took them down today, up and down the entire main street, and everybody does the entire front of their building. So you've got all reds, all blues, all greens, up and down. Maybe a half mile. Just a beautiful, nice walk, all those things. But I said, there's got to be a different way to shoot this. And so this is with an EM10, and actually with the fisheye on it. The 1.8 fisheye, and shot through. I had a suction cup on top of the car, and I was, boy, was it cold. I'm laughing because I made my wife drive as I took the shot. And I just had her keep driving these links over and over again through the street, and set it up, just as a live composite with the car moving, and great stabilization, of course, in an Olympus. And then made sure the car was clean. I got some nice reflections off the car. A lot of fun. And it looks like it's you're going into hyperspace, like Star Wars.
Yeah, it does, or almost like a tunnel even. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Real fun. I've got an article out on the Olympus site about how to do this too.
Oh, excellent.
On the learning page on this exact shot.
Very cool. All right, so I'll make sure I put the link to that in the description when we're done here.
Yeah. This
is switching gears.
We are switching gears to black and white and some street. All right, so I had to show this just because it's backstory on this really is just to show the Detroit, hometown. That's the Renaissance Center, or GM World headquarters as it's known now.
Okay.
This it's just had a feel that day, gloomy day. So I do a lot of black and white when I do my street stuff anyways. But this, as I started to look at it through the viewfinder, I started to think of, and I don't know if you ever saw RoboCop.
Yes.
But this has got, because that was filmed and made in Detroit, or is supposed to be the future of Detroit.
Right.
Pretty rough areas, not like that anymore. We can take that context away, but this just had a great, the car and everything, and I had to get alongside of this was like a police station area that I saw this car, got down below the wheel. Believe it or not, I had about 4 police come out and say, what are you doing by the car? I had to explain to them, showed them the picture, and they said, oh, that's cool. Okay, so just to show I'm not trying to do anything to your cars. I wouldn't be that idiot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
cool.
definitely just a cool shot, and getting something up close. This was with the Pen F. This is a Pen F in the 17. Awesome. Here's another Pen F shot in New York City. Had a workshop just a few months ago with Megan Crandallmeyer.
And you have another one coming up this year, right?
We do. And I was just going to plug that one.
Yeah, go for it.
There's 2 spots left, and that's it.
Okay.
We only take 4 people. And it's coming up June 1st and 2nd, or 2nd and 3rd. Again, I can get you the link on that. But cool. Megan wrote a book, took pictures, did a 52 Magic Mondays. She's one of our super fans for Olympus. And just an amazing photographer that has been going to New York for years. She lives in Connecticut and just takes the train in back and forth, back and forth. Okay. For 52 straight Mondays, she did that. And she just knows the areas in and out. So this is one of the nights before that. And I always try to find something to do some kind of framing in street photography. I love natural frames. And I saw this is a lid of a garbage can that was just somebody forgot to put it back down. Yep. And I just stood there and waited. The street light is right over where that guy's at. I said, this couldn't be any better. Yeah. And I've got a whole bunch of different people walking through it, but sure enough, he looked, and he was probably the only one that looked at me. Yeah. So just, I love natural frames. Yeah. It's got a different feel to it. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. This one this is with an Olympus TG3, those little tough cameras.
Okay. Yeah.
Took this to DC, and it just was pouring in DC, and as we traveled around and went to the cemetery, and have you been there? It's just very moving.
In Arlington?
Yeah, in Arlington.
Yes, actually, my father is interned there, so yes, I have been
definitely
there. And now here's the admission, though. I will be completely honest. I've never shot there. I keep saying that I'm going to, but I haven't yet. So yeah, but I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I normally, actually, this is a bit of a tough shot to take for me. It's got a little emotional. It's so emotional being there, and I'm certain for you it is.
Sure. How old is this shot, Mike?
This shot here, so TG3. This is probably 2014.
Okay, so is this in the is this in the area that's in front of the columbarium where it's all the Iraq and Afghanistan?
I'm not really sure exactly. We just had turned off to watch the guard do the guard changing.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then just walked around to this area and found the person, and I just saw I've got to take the shot. Yeah, this just looked too perfect to see something like that, especially with rain.
The views there are stunning in almost any direction that you go. The views,
right. Yeah. So I like the emotion that it brings, and usually get a lot of comments about that. And I'll post it a couple times a year, obviously at different times. Thank all of our vets that are there. Yeah, what they've done and helped us.
So this one, before you talk about this, I should forewarn you. He's stalking us right now. Okay, so he's here.
I know.
So we have to be careful what we say about him. Okay.
So it's not normally that another visionary is one of your favorite photos, and I always I put this into I don't know how many presentations now that I do for Olympus, but Jamie, I know Jamie's got an article I think on why he puts himself in photos, which is a great article, and you might think it's because he likes to see himself. That's the farthest thing from it. But this is in Central Park. And we were in New York at the Visionary Summit 2 years ago, and this picture, just great tunnel, and we were all playing around in the tunnel. I got all the visionaries messing around in there, but this one I said, Jamie, you've got to get out there with these lines coming back, and I said, it's just one of those things I just like to see. Whenever you got the lines drawing in, just the natural framing of that lines and the bright light, and questioning what is he doing, and I know Jamie likes it too, so that's cool.
no, definitely a neat shot.
Yeah,
and for something very different.
Yeah, and now I wish I would have had a 360 camera in that tunnel, but that's a whole nother story. So if you don't know, besides the Olympus affiliation, I'm also an ambassador for Insta360, which is a company that makes 360 cameras, and they look sort of like, which I think you have this one right there.
Yep.
The Insta361, their newest, we'll call it their flagship. It's so small, it's hard to call it a flagship.
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I shoot 360, and it's not all tiny planets. It's a lot of video, or you can do a lot of good instructional video. One of the neat things is you can hook that right on a hot shoe, and you can walk down the street, talk, discuss what you're shooting, discuss what you're seeing as street photography, and you can actually turn the camera, go vertical, and it stays straight. You know what I mean? The video. So you shoot first, point later in these videos, and so a lot of fun. I encourage anybody. I'm big on trying new things. I don't like to stay caught in any ruts. So I love stuff like this. It's something new. It's experimental to me, and it makes a lot of sense. And sometimes it makes people crazy. My wife can't stand these pictures.
Oh, really?
I think but I said, cool. I like them. This is one of those things.
Well, I think for me, it's kind of like anything else. There are 360 pictures that I've seen that are kind of like, okay, it's a 360 picture. Who cares?
Yep.
And then there are 360 pictures where it's like, okay, this is truly like amazing. It's really well done. Right. It's out of the box. It's visually stunning. And I think that's the challenge for a lot of people. It's easy to get caught up in the gimmick.
Exactly.
But it still comes down to, can you generate something that's kind of truly engaging? It's going to get people to pause, and to look at it. So I'll admit, I've been having fun with it. I haven't had near enough time to play with it as I would like. Right. And one of my goals is actually kind of what you mentioned, to be able to use it during shoots, to shoot some B-roll and
that's what
to
I'm
be able
thinking.
to get different angles and that. So it's definitely got a lot of potential, and the image quality for something that small is pretty insane. It really is.
And then the stabilization, because I do a lot of biking and stuff, and oh my gosh, the stabilization. I love the stabilization in our cameras and our Olympus, but this one, for being an action type camera, is amazing. For it. So definitely, it's a lot of fun. Let's put it that way. You need a little break for some fun. In my life. Yeah, this is not something I'm doing, like I heard Jamie say on the last show. I mean, both of him and I are, we got day jobs. We don't do this full time. And, so if it's not fun, I'm probably not doing it.
Hey, and, at the end of the day, you're not going to do your best work unless you're having fun.
Right.
I don't care what you shoot. So, no, I completely agree. So I was fascinated. I didn't know that you started on a path as a photojournalist. So we had a very similar beginning. I got my first camera when I was 11. My first, the picture that turned the corner for me, I don't have it. And it's so disappointing because it was a picture of my father. It was my first lesson in understanding that the best light outdoors is at sunset or sunrise. It was late in the afternoon, and he was sitting in a long chair. He had just finished cutting the grass. He was tired. He'd worked all day at a factory. The light was actually really harsh because it was getting low. And I just took this close-up shot that, I got lucky because I still didn't really know what I was doing with the camera, but it was an amazing exposure. And it was black and white. but it just, I fell in love with this picture just because of the grittiness of it and all of that. And at that point, I was hooked. And then at 14, I had my first picture in a newspaper. And when I saw that byline, like, that was it. Done. That's really cool.
Yeah,
you know?
That's exactly how I felt like, oh God, that's cool.
Exactly. So yeah, I was hooked. So that's fascinating because I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I always tell the other visionaries, you know, Jay Dickman and that I always say, I really wanted to be you when I grew up.
It's funny because I got to meet Jay finally in October at Photo Plus, and that's exactly what I said to him. That's
and
that was the first time I got to meet him.
Back. Him and Larry Price both say, "Thank God you weren't."
Well, right,
not the business you want to be in.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're right. They're right.
So yeah. So we've got a bunch of questions here that are great because they're street questions. So gang, just so you know, if you have more questions, start typing. Mike is going to be here with us until 7, so we've got a whole half an hour that we can pick his brain here. Since obviously I am not the expert on street photography, I want to make sure that we do as many of the street questions, and there's some urbex questions in here, so we'll get those in first, and then you're stuck with me for the last half hour, gang, and we'll answer whatever else you want to talk about. So, Steve Wilking had a question here. You kind of answered this already, Mike, but I'll let you kind of wrap it up with a bow. And he wanted to know why you switched to the Micro Four Thirds since you were also a Nikon shooter. What were the catalysts?
Two things. One is the street piece, you know, carrying it light, one lens. But the other one really was urbex. I did a lot of urbex in Detroit.
Now, just for those that don't know, I know it's very popular and trendy, but define urbex.
Urban exploring through abandoned buildings. Okay. And, you know, back in 2010, 11, and 12, Detroit was full of abandoned buildings. I mean, every corner was an abandoned building, abandoned factory. Some amazing shots can be had. I didn't share a single one with you. And life has changed in Detroit. Detroit is taking off.
Sure.
Detroit is nowhere near where it was then. And, you know, occupancy rates and the people moving in here are just over the top. Right. We've got a new building going up. It'll be the tallest in Michigan, 900-foot, 90-story building going dead center. But yeah, huge time in Detroit. But you know, with the Nikon and a couple lenses, it's just you've got to crawl through holes, get over fences. It's not going to work. But the Olympus was perfect for that, and that was the EM5, the original EM5. Yeah, that I did a lot of that work with. Yep. So very cool. that was the main reason. And, you know, from a sports photography, when the EM1 came out in 2013, I believe, February 2013 or October, that really started moving it forward for me for sports. So
excellent. So Steve also asked, who are the influential photographers for you, or photographers that you look up to or admire?
Robert Winograd, we probably is one of the ones that I admire from a street photography standpoint. Other than that, I'm going to tell you, it's my uncle.
Yeah.
I mean, and people aren't going to say, they're going to say your uncle. Who's that? You know, Patrick Bushmole. And, you know, I mean, I look up to him to this day.
That's awesome.
It's as easy and simple as that.
And now, what kind of photography does he do?
Because he does your type of photography.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll do in his own studio. Obviously, he's had his studio for 40+ years. But a lot of school stuff, a lot of portraits and family portraits. It's a business that, like he says, nobody wants to be in right now because of people like us. He says, you're killing my business. Because everybody can do it. But he used to do weddings. I think he shot 10,500 weddings in his career. He stopped doing weddings about maybe 8 years ago. He just said, enough's enough. Yeah. And you couldn't pay me to do a wedding, I don't think.
So I am curious. So I say that all the time. But I'm curious, what's your reason behind that? Just so
I don't know if I can handle the outside influences of everyone, pulling at me. Now, I also think that I could do a second shooter at a wedding, though. If someone said, capture this from a documentary standpoint, this whole day, and just let me go through it, almost like a street photography thing. Right. Now, I think I would like to do that, actually. Yeah. But not everybody's looking for a lot of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's lining up and this shot or that shot.
Right. It's interesting. There is a lot more, at least in my area, there are a lot more wedding photographers that are doing a balance The evolution that I've seen here, kind of between New York and Philadelphia, is probably 5 to 6 years ago, it became a standard that, you know, if you were a wedding photographer, you better have a second shooter, otherwise nobody's going to hire you. But that second shooter at the time was part assistant, you know, moving lights around, that kind of stuff, moving gear around, and was the person that was essentially kind of the equivalent of the B-roll producer. So like at the reception, they were the one going around from table to table doing pictures of every single guest and that type of stuff. That's starting to change a little bit, at least around here, where the second shooters indeed are actually going more of a journalistic approach, and then they're combining the two together in their albums, where your primary shooters are doing, you know, all the groups, all kind of the big impact images, which you and I both understand that if they're really going to start putting these together, eventually we're going to realize the impact images are coming from the photojournalism side, not the you know, the contrived side. But,
exactly.
But it is starting to change. I'm actually, so as much as I talk about not doing weddings, just for the folks that are watching, because they've heard me say it many, many times, April of this year, I am going to second shoot a wedding. So here's a pro tip for those of you that are the photographer in your family or have lots of friends and they're your photographers. If someone comes to you and it's like a relative or, you know, a son or a daughter of a friend. So this happens to be the daughter of my best friend growing up. She happens to work at the same college that my wife teaches at. And sure enough, she contacted me last summer and she's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. How about getting together for lunch? And I knew exactly what was coming. I knew exactly what was coming. And I was dreading it because like I didn't want to have to say no. But at the same time, it's like, so here's how I did it again. I shouldn't go on record as this because now it's going to be out there, but I'll tell the story. So, you know, we had lunch and she waited till the very end and she's like, so I wanted to ask you, you want me to shoot the wedding? And she's like, how do you know? I'm like, come on, really? Like, you know, but so here's what I had her do. So here's the pro tip, gang. This works like a charm. So I told her, I said, well, you know, before I agree to do this, I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to give you the kind of pictures that you like. So what I want you to do is take a couple days, sit down with your fiance, go through Pinterest and send me like a secret board of the kind of stuff that you're really into. Now, keeping in mind that I do all this crazy beauty stuff, right? So I knew that none of the wedding pictures were going to look anything like my work. So sure enough, a week later, she sends me this board and bingo, none of it looks like anything I do. So I just pointed out to her, I was like, well, here's the problem. Like, you know, I want to help you, but I don't want to let you down. And my style is nothing like this. So what I did though, is I helped them find their photographer. So their photographer happens to be a former intern of mine from about 15 years ago, who's still shooting, has a really good business going. And I told them, I said, as your wedding gift to you, I will be her second shooter. That way she can charge you a little less and I can still help you create pictures. So on those terms, I'm actually really thrilled because I don't have to do any of the business, any of the negotiations, you know.
That's where I probably would be.
So I'm just going to go out and shoot for a day, which is great, you know. But so for those of you that are trying to, you know, get out of having to do the weddings for family, friends, make them put together a Pinterest board and then just point out to them, now your photography doesn't look anything like what's on that board. you're off the hook, okay?
Exactly. Good deal. I like it.
So Andrew's asking, primes or zooms for street photography?
I go all prime in the street. You know, when I do workshops, people will come with zooms and we'll let use them. But zooms have what I like to call is the creep factor in the street. I don't think it's not a good look to be zooming in and out with the 40 to 150 or even the 12 to 100 in my mind. Although I've used the 12 to 100. I'll admittedly say I've been out doing more let's say urban landscape type shooting. And street photography comes along, or I see something at a decisive moment. I'm not going to flip a lens around. I got the camera. I'm taking it. But then again, if I'm going out and I'm focusing on street photography, it's a prime. It's the 17 mainly for me.
And now is the Pen F still your preferred street camera?
Definitely, unless it's absolutely pouring. You know, and then I'll go with the EM1 Mark II.
So just for the next level, which I know some of the Olympus users will want to know, I'm assuming that you're talking the Premium 17, not the Pro 17. Or do you take the Pro 17?
Well, I do both. I'll do both. I will do a lot more with the Premium one, the 1.8, the f1.8, because it's so light and simple.
Right, super small.
But when I want to get weather sealed, I'll definitely switch over to the 1.2, and it'll be on the EM1 Mark II. Still small though, really. You know, from comparing it to a Nikon day. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, anything.
I mean, if you had to do something like that,
So indeed.
Yeah. So but definitely primes.
What would you say is the most challenging part of street photography for you? And I think Steve asked this question, but I think he's anticipating the answer. So I'll go ahead and I'll read the rest of his question. His second part is, how did you overcome it? So I think I'm anticipating the same thing, but maybe you didn't have to overcome it. So
and it may not be the same thing that you're thinking. I think the most difficult thing for me is finding the decisive moment. A lot of people say it's talking with people or it's approaching people. That doesn't bother me at all. I have no problem talking to anybody, and I think a lot like you've got a personality that you can talk to people. I don't know how it is on the street, but for me, I have no problem you know, walking up, talking to people, asking for photo and not asking them for a photo. And I've got a lot of cues that if that's the question, if Steve's asking too, is like approaching people, a lot of cues, simple things. I'm looking for a camera to grab. I got them behind me. So I'm holding the camera, and it's just a simple, you know, a nod of the camera, a smile, you know, a thumbs up, you know, you're looking sharp today. I keep walking. I don't sit there and say, oh, you know, and look at the back of my camera. Wait, come back. I need to reset my, you know, f-stop. Look, the time's gone. You know, either you got the shot or you didn't at that point.
Well, my guess is, and Steve, you can weigh in here, but my guess is he was expecting it to be about people, because that's the one I get the most. It's like, how do you deal with people? And
me too.
So interesting enough for me, like, yes, in the context of photography, Mike, I can talk to anybody. Take away my cameras, I'm the guy that would cross the street instead of actually having to talk to somebody. I really am. but with that camera, I mean, it's not a problem. It's, you know, to be able to communicate or interact with people. So now, if I'm getting my photo history right, decisive moment, we're talking Bresson. Is that correct?
Definitely that. To me, you know, and a lot of what Robert Frank did. Robert Frank spent a lot of time, you know, in Detroit and too. So.
Give us some examples or some tips or kind of a view into your thought process.
When I'm walking,
you told us about the guy framed in the trash can lid, which is a perfect example. First you realized, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but first you realized get the person in the lid, then you realize the pole, and then of course it's that getting that lucky moment where the guy looks, and then the three things come together.
Exactly.
Give me some more examples.
Put yourself in a position. Some other examples are great advertising on walls and, you know, or on windows. You know, I always throw this one up here. I didn't share the shot, but I've got a great one from Chicago. There's a huge, this is going to sound funny, Victoria's Secret store in Chicago, or actually San Francisco, just huge. They've got all their pictures, you know, of the giant women and, you know, whatever in their lingerie, right? So you put yourself in that spot and you wait and you watch and just sit there and wait and watch the guys that are walking with their wives and holding their hands. And then at the same time, looking up at the windows, and you got the wife looking at them. And it's just, those are great shots to put a backdrop of that big ad between them. So it's looking for, to me, it's looking for the window dressing and sometimes just something funny, you know, something sarcastic behind someone that, you know, it doesn't necessarily fit the way they look, let's say. And it's not making fun of the person, because that's a big piece that I talk about, is never to, I really never, unless I was doing something documentary wise, never homeless, never someone that's, I've got, you know, a picture here or there of a woman crying or something. It's just not something I'd ever post. You know, I would never let people see that work. I just don't believe it. Someone that's not in the right state of mind, I'd rather have more of the flashy guy with a big, yellow hat on or something.
That's actually great. I like that. I don't want to even say a sense of morality, but I like that value system with that. I think that's really good. So, I know you talked about moments with people and kind of whether it be framing or whether it be reactions or responses or using elements to create kind of an irony or a contrast. Do you ever find yourself in terms of finding that decisive moment waiting on light? So I don't mean the idea of like wait for the sunset or that kind of stuff, but from an intersection, maybe a nice stream of light or a nice shadow that's coming down, realizing that if you wait another half hour, that shadow is going to migrate to a point. Is that ever a factor?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one area that we both have been in this last year was at Dumbo, by the bridge on the street. Okay. There was some great light in the morning that we got the last 10 minutes or so of it streaming between the buildings with that Brooklyn Bridge, sitting there. It's just it's amazing light coming through the buildings, and when you can get people walking with that, it's fantastic. But yeah, other than that, probably I need to slow down more, or at least I feel like I need to tell myself to slow down more. I'm big on walking, so I'm walking fast, and I always think, a lot of people say slow down, wait for an hour, and take pictures in the same area. Right. When I do my workshops, I say, you're not going to get that from me. We're going to move. We're going to keep moving. Right. And as we move, we'll catch something. If we miss it, there's something right around the next corner. So let's go get it. That's how I look at it. Yeah. So it's a little bit against that, but you still, so the decisive moments, I'll spend 10 minutes there, but not an hour. Right. I'm not that kind of guy to spend an hour there.
That's cool. Very cool. Yeah. So James is asking, do you ever use Flash for any of your street work?
I do not, and I can't imagine. Although I know there's some great ones that do.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, we go back to like the likes of Ouija with that. But I mean, do you ever? Is your street work predominantly when we're dealing with people in the street? Is it predominantly daytime stuff? Do you do any nighttime stuff?
A whole lot of nighttime stuff.
Really?
I'll shoot 6400 ISO is absolutely the cap. I'll go. But with the EM1 Mark II, I'll go up to 10,000 too if I have to. Look, the whole idea behind me and street photography is to capture the decisive moment. If it's got some blurriness, if it's got some grain or whatever we want to call it, noise, it just doesn't faze me. I want the moment. If I capture the moment, I'm happy. And that's hard for a lot of people that say, wait, I got to get my f-stop right. I got to get my aperture. You can't wait for that stuff.
One of the examples I try to point out to people, if you go to Google and you search for the phrase iconic photographs, and click on the images tab, you will get a page full of pictures that most of us will recognize from the news. And the irony of it is if we go through those images, the overwhelming majority of them have poor composition, or poor exposure, or poor focus, or blurred things. But these are images that are remembered by people, and it's because of that moment. It's because of the emotion behind it. It's not because it had lots of dynamic range or really cool bokeh in the background. It's got nothing to do with any of those reasons at all. So
no, I wanted to incite some emotion. That's if I can get people to catch some emotion, from my photos, then I've won in my mind. That's what I look for.
So you had a lot of really awesome black and white images, and Doug's asking, what's your preferred method for doing your conversions to black and white?
Well, first and foremost, I'm shooting with the Pen F, so I'm always shooting in the mono. In the mono JPEGs, and you'd be surprised.
So you're using the art filter? Black and white?
Well,
are you really?
Not the art filter, but the profile. Because in the Pen F, those are profiles.
Right. Now, do you adjust that profile at all, or do you just go straight with the base settings?
I will always shoot in the number 2 profile. It's I know we're not supposed to say the type of film it is, from Kodak, but I'm going to the Tri-X film. I mean, it's Tri-X. I'm sorry, that's what I shot when I was shooting film. So it looks so much like Triax. So I just love that setting, and I'll keep it on that. And sunny day, bright day, cloudy day, I'm shooting usually in black and white, unless I was something really wild, then I'll throw it in.
And so I just want to make sure everybody caught that. So I heard you right. You're shooting JPEGs, right?
Oh yeah, I'm shooting. Those are JPEGs, and so when I shared there tonight, at least 3 of those are JPEGs.
Right, good. So please, everybody, notice while he's drinking his water, he's still sitting there. The lightning has not struck. He's shooting JPEGs. It's very doable. Okay, it all comes down to paying attention and actually being a photographer. That's awesome. Very, very good.
Yeah,
very cool.
I mean, I know Jamie wouldn't be surprised at all because we talk so much how great the JPEGs are in Olympus, and I know you believe that too.
Sure.
But from the Pen F, they're amazing. But from a sense of post-processing, I look to keep my time on post-processing under a minute on every photo.
Really? Very good.
Yeah. So very
good. So what is your preferred software?
Well, I mean, in Lightroom, I've got a lot of presets that I'll put them under, and I'll use Luminar. I really like Luminar lately. We've been doing a lot of work. I know Jamie and I have both been talking about it on our show. So we've been using some Luminar, but I tell you what, with the new profiles that are set up in Lightroom, when you go into the mono and the 810 things, I'll throw a little extra contrast, maybe a little, little detail, but that's it. I don't like to spend hours on doing it. Now, if I've got a good landscape, like you see the Detroit or like a live composite, I'll spend a good 5, 10, 15 minutes maybe on something that I really have captured in that sense. But from the street photography, I think a minute or under, and I'm happy. I'm rolling.
Very cool. That makes me very jealous and makes me long for the newspaper.
I'm sure it does. I don't know how you do it, but
Photoshop is sometimes a very large part of my life at this stage of the game. But I've kind of committed this year. I'm going to do a lot more natural light work just so that I'm not doing compositing and all the crazy stuff. But, yeah, it's definitely. Well,
I can't wait till we get. I mean, this is not a question, but a lot of people may not know we haven't shot together yet.
No, we haven't.
But I know on my trips out to Philly, though, I'm contacting you so we can do.
I was gonna say, when you come to Philly or one of these workshops that you do with Megan in New York, I'm gonna crash the party. And come
that'd be great.
I would love to do that stuff with you. And big part too. I mean, especially now, I understand so much better. I understand your work so much better knowing your newspaper background, because there's a lot of things that I see in your imagery that really kind of I relate to. Obviously, I don't do it anymore. So for me, it's kind of that lost fun. Like, if I get to go out and shoot, something that's just an event, or even go to shoot a sporting event, because back in my newspaper days, I did a lot of sports. I covered the Philadelphia Eagles and the Phillies and the Sixers. So now, like, when I get to go do stuff, it's kind of this adrenaline rush, just because it's like, wow, like I remember this, and it's funny though, because at the same time, it's very humbling. So I've told the story on here. I shot a college football game early in the season this year. When I made my switch to Olympus, I got carried away, and I bought the 300, not because I needed it, but because 300, it's a 600. That's like awesome.
Yes, exactly.
So I decided, you know what? I'm going to take this puppy out and I'm going to use it. So I got out and I'm on the sideline, and the first quarter of this game was probably the worst crap I have ever shot in my entire life, and of anything. Because the lens is just long enough that if you're not standing a mile away, like I'm on the sideline, I'm where I should be, which means that sucker's filling the frame.
Exactly.
But so for the first quarter, like I'm missing guys running in and out of the frame. I wasn't able to get the autofocus to keep up, but that was my fault, not the camera's fault, because I still had the image preview popping up for a half a second, which was slowing things down. So literally it was like, okay, you know how to do this. You got to get your act together here. So it's kind of like go back and relearn it. But it's the first time in easily 12 years that I had shot any sports. So by the end of the game, I was like nailing it, and the camera was just like doing all the work for me. It was awesome. But yeah, first quarter is probably the worst pictures I've ever taken in my entire life.
I'm
like, this is not going well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's an amazing lens, and it's a lens I never would have bought, never would have got out that for the Nikon. I doubt you probably had that either.
Well, the cost alone for the Nikon is
I know, $10,000.
Right.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah. So Bert asked, do you ever use a 75 millimeter for your street work?
Yeah, I have in Chicago, and that's if I position myself in one simple area, and I do stay. When I force myself to stay, I like that because I can grab across the street pretty nice with that in some tight streets. So if I get a good graffiti background that I'd like to get somebody to go by, maybe do a little panning. I've used that for some panning of bike racers through the city of Chicago.
Okay, cool. Right.
So because they're a little too far away from me, to get closer. So that's a great lens. It's a lens a lot of people don't talk about anymore.
Yeah, they don't. In fact, when
I 25 or 50,
when I switched, nobody talked about it until after I switched. So I bought all my gear, and then everybody's like, "Why didn't you get the 75?" I'm like, "Cause no, I saw nothing about this lens like anywhere." And I'll admit, so it's a little bit longer than what I ideally like in the studio, but I find myself finding more and more and more reasons to use it, which is it is. I mean, it's got that little extra bit of compression. It's great. I mean, I have a lot of fun with it. Even the last video that I posted where I used the Garland to make the bokeh in the backgrounds, I did that with a 75 1.8 at 2.8 and still got bokeh. So
which is nice.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely it's a great lens, and for the price, you can't beat those kind of lenses. I mean, you absolutely can't. I mean, we kind of get to the point where I know I do already. Even though I'm a studio guy, it's like a first question. I'm like, okay, is it weatherproof? Is it weatherproof? It's like there was a large part of my career where I took pictures without weatherproof gear. So it was like,
exactly.
Every now and then I kind of have to remind myself, like, it doesn't have to be weatherproof when I'm in
the
studio.
and I don't want to say, I don't want somebody to go out and do it, but I have shot with that Pen F in pouring rain.
Yeah.
With a 17-1.8 on, nothing weatherproof, snow, everything. I go for it. I mean, what am I going to do? Yeah. I got a camera.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think we always did that. I mean, I did that back in the old Nikon F days, and back then, if I had to shoot a football game in the rain, it was like, get a trash bag, poke a hole in it, pull the trash bag over my head and stick the lens through it. Like, that's it. And then you pray through the whole football game that you don't miss a play and get decked because you don't see them coming because you've got the trash
peripheral vision.
Exactly right. But so I've been there through all of those instances. So Mike, I know you've got to go in a minute, so I want to sneak in one more question because this changes gears just a little bit. This question came up a little bit earlier. You had mentioned the shot that you did for the Pure Michigan campaign, and so the question was, how does that even happen? And I have a feeling that it was an easier process than what he's asking, but he's asking basically, how do you negotiate that kind of a contract? What is something like that worth?
There wasn't a whole lot of negotiation.
And that's frequently the case, right? Yeah, so that's why I said that.
They came to me and said, here's what we'd like to do. Your image has been selected out of all these, which I know that there's a lot of images people submit to Pure Michigan. And would you want to give us the rights for 1 year, and at this amount, and here's the contract, and if not, we'll go to image number 2. So I'll raise my hand. Again, I'm not doing this to pay the mortgage, so it's real simple to say I want my picture out there. I'm more for it being out there, and I mean, I knew it was going out. In fact, Jamie was the first one that saw one of the billboards in the middle of Michigan. He took a picture and goes, "Man, your picture is on a billboard." Yeah. So
it's very cool. I'm actually really excited. I have a billboard going up next week, so I'm looking forward to it. They just
that's so awesome.
Just sent me the location of it today, so hopefully we'll be able to do some.
So there wasn't a lot of negotiation. I guess I could have gone back at them, but I wasn't chancing losing it either. Yeah, I'd rather say I worked for Pure Michigan than say I didn't. Absolutely. And say I held out for $100 or something.
Believe me, there have been plenty of scenarios throughout my career where it's been like, you know what, this is just too cool an opportunity. I'm not going to let money get in the way of it.
Absolutely.
And it means you work a little bit harder on some other projects and so on. But to me, that's kind of one of those things. It's really cool to be able to see it and see you did it.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Well, Mike, listen, I really, really appreciate it. I don't want to keep you late here. We're coming right up on 7 o'clock. I sincerely appreciate it. I am certainly looking forward to hopefully getting to spend time with both you and Jamie at the beginning of the year. So hopefully we will have another visionary summit.
I know.
I figure now that I'm a visionary, this will be the first year they don't have one in a long time, right?
Yeah, great job, Joe.
But hopefully that'll happen, and you know, we'll get to spend some time together. But definitely, if you find yourself headed out to Philly or even out to New York, let me know, because we have definitely got to get together. I'm bummed that we couldn't hook up when I was down in Austin, but the weather sucked.
I know, it was horrible. To get out.
So I literally saw nothing of Austin. It wasn't worth trying because the weather was just horrible.
No, it was bad weather. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and I know there's a lot of questions. Anybody, go follow me on Facebook, message me. You'll find myself, and I'll speak for Jamie with Mirrorless Minutes. You know, we get back to people in way less than 24 hours, sometimes in an hour.
Yeah, I will tell you, both Mike and Jamie, these guys are awesome. They're about as down to earth as they come. They are very accessible. They'll jump through hoops to help you out. So all of Mike's social media links, his website link, I've been dumping in here, which you can get to his social media from there, but all the social media links will be in the description below the video when we wrap up. Great. So by all means, you know, check
reach out to me.
And make sure you follow him. But if you have follow-up questions, by all means, make sure you ask. Okay?
Thanks so much.
All right, Mike, once again, thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Buddy. Take care. All right, bye now. All right, gang. So we're going to keep going here, okay? We still got another half an hour. Jamie, we're social butterflies. Yes, you guys are. I tell you, seriously, the thing that really blew my mind when I first started getting involved in the Olympus community, when I made the switch and started following everybody on social media and kind of just, you know, picking up a little bit of landscape, Jamie and Mike, these guys are like machines. And I mean that in the most amazingly positive way. These guys shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and they generate just awesome images. So I would also encourage you guys, make sure that you subscribe to Mirrorless Minutes. So it's YouTube. Just type in Mirrorless Minutes, you'll find it. The link will also be underneath, okay? It's just a casual conversation between the two of them. They usually go like 35, 40 minutes a show. They do every other Wednesday, so they come on after me every other Wednesday, okay? So I'll make sure you have that link, but I would encourage you, especially if you're a Micro Four Thirds shooter. So it doesn't have to be just Olympus, right? But if you're a Micro Four Thirds shooter, I would encourage you to check them out, because I know I've actually learned quite a few things about the Micro Four Thirds world by watching their show. Okay, so go ahead, guys. We got 30 minutes, so keep dumping some questions in here. I just want to go back to make sure, or see if I missed anything. Doug, you asked Mike about his black and white conversions. I didn't want to take up any more time because I knew I only had Mike until 7. I've talked about it in the past, so you may have heard me talk about it, and that is I use the Nick Silver effects. Which is definitely kind of my preferred, and I've created my own little kind of presets that are my starting points. But I will tell you, I've been dabbling a little bit with Luminar and doing the conversions in Luminar recently, and actually been getting some really good results. So I'm kind of, I would call it Luminar curious. Certainly because of the work that I do, I'm not in a position where I can give up Photoshop yet. But I'm always open to something that's going to meet my needs, and I really love what they're doing with Luminar and the way they're putting that software together, especially now with the digital asset management. Really awesome stuff. So so I'm just scrolling back up here to make sure that we didn't miss anything. Michael Brown had a comment earlier about Mike's shot from Atlanta. He said he's done that shot, but this one looks so much better, so now he's got to redo it. Michael, that's the fun part about doing this kind of stuff is, you know, you do something, you like it, and then you see somebody else that does it with a completely different twist, and you go out and you revisit it, you try it again. I mentioned the shot that Mike showed us from the Chicago theater. That's the picture that made me want to try live composite. And when I taught at Out of Chicago this year, I made the trek. In fact, just so you know that we all get along, I went on a photo walk with Nikon ambassador Deborah Sandridge, who is awesome, and her photo walk was to the Chicago theater. So I tagged along. She was very gracious in letting me come along, And she was actually, you know, really interested in learning about the live composite. Not that she's going to be leaving Nikon anytime soon, of course, but so it was a lot of fun just to be able to kind of compare notes and get out there and kind of do my version of that shot. So, you know, the best part of it is a lot of times you do a shot and you go back and you know, you recreate them. And even one of the things that I'm doing, since I am no longer using the images from my Nikon portfolio, there are a few kind of concept shots that I had in my portfolio that are still very special to me. I really like them. I've always liked them, and I'm kind of going back now one at a time, slowly, but essentially revisiting that concept and not trying to copy it inch for inch, because realistically I'm never going to do that, but trying to basically take the concept and say, okay, here I am now in 2019. How do I do this concept today? And basically kind of recreate that concept and work with it, and which means it's going to be a little bit different, hopefully a little bit better, but just to be able to kind of add that idea back into my portfolio, because it's something that I really like. I think it really fits well in terms of representing the kind of work that I do. So I'm going back and revisiting some of my old shots and not tweaking them to see what I can do in Photoshop, but actually going back and reshooting and trying to kind of see where I can take it at this point, okay? So let's see, Andrew asked, and I'm sorry, Andrew, that we did not get to this question. I missed this one we went by before. What's Mike's favorite bag for traveling? Any airline tips for dealing with camera gear? I'm not sure what Mike uses, Andrew, but I will tell you recently I posted a video on traveling with camera gear, which you may have seen, and obviously you may have just been looking for you know, Mike's take on that. But in case you haven't seen it, I'll put the link there in the chat window so that you can check that out if you've got some you know, traveling coming up. Okay. All right, so let me scroll back down here. I've only got one or two questions in the queue, guys. So by all means, if you have a couple more questions, type them in there, okay? From Steve, is there anything in the photography industry that you are dying to learn or to do other than teaching, of course? Always, Steve. Right now, top of my list. Mike actually showed you one of the things, and that's the 360 camera. I have one. Today, as I stand here, I will be completely honest with you and say that it amounts to a gas purchase, gear acquisition syndrome. I have not spent really any time with it. I've had it for probably a month and a half, 2 months. My goal is to, number one, be able to actually put it to use in my YouTube videos and some live streams, because I can do that with it. But also to go out and do some creative stuff with it. I think that there is some really, really cool, you know, kind of creative opportunities as far as that goes. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, which you'll see coming out in some videos in the next month or so, and that is to get back to printing. You know, I really debated, do I even want to make this an issue this year? But it is going to be an issue this year because we don't, as an industry, we don't do enough printing. And I, you know, I find on one hand, some people think, oh, he's all right, guys, I'm going to bring you back on this one. I don't know why you lost the audio, but you shouldn't have lost audio. So you got me back now. Make sure that you got me now, guys. Give me nah, the mic didn't unplug. I think I had a battery die, which it shouldn't have, but let me know. All right, you should have audio, so we're going to go with this, okay? So, where was I now? Okay. Guys, I looked at the screen. Just give me a heads up that you've got the audio back. You should have it back now. Okay. I know we have like about a 30 to 45 second delay here. Okay. But you should have it. Yep, there we go. Okay, cool. So it's not going to be quite as loud, so you may have to adjust your volume a little bit. I apologize, but I just picked up on a backup mic. It's all good. So anyway, printing, definitely something that I want to be doing more of. And, you know, the thing with printing, Steve, is it is kind of like a learning curve in the sense that it's not just, hey, like buy a printer and plug it in and start printing. And that's, I think, honestly, the mistake that a lot of people make with printers is they don't take the time to really do the research. That's the mistake that I made with printers years ago. I had a printer, used it a lot, delivered client prints with that printer. And as I look back on them, I realized that ultimately they were not the quality that they should have been because I never truly learned how to print properly. So one of the things that you will see from me, you know, this year, Steve, is that I'm going to be doing a lot of kind of back to basics things on some topics that I think we all tend to overlook. There's a lot of mystery around them. Printing is one of them. People seem to either love printing or hate printing, and more often than not, I find that people tend to be scared by printing. Another thing I want to talk about very soon, actually, is memory cards. You remember when Nikon, Canon came out with, you know, their new cameras, Nikon in particular, the world started to end because there was only one card slot. It was like, oh my God, how could they possibly put out a camera with only one card slot? And the funny part is, as I started talking to more and more photographers and asking some questions about their memory cards and about some of the experiences that they had had, what I also started learning was that a lot of photographers, myself included, don't, or didn't, at least for me, but don't properly understand memory cards, how they work, what goes wrong, how do you make things go wrong, how do you make sure things don't go wrong, are you overbuying? So many of you are overbuying your memory cards, meaning spending much, much more money on faster, bigger memory cards than you actually need. So one of the things I want to do is I want to really kind of break that down and kind of debunk it for people so that people get a much better understanding of what do you really need in terms of memory. And in terms of this idea of how much do we need one card slot or how much do we need two card slots, all that kind of stuff, how much of a concern is that really? Because interestingly enough, when the arguments start flying about why you need two card slots, most of the time, the reasons that people are arguing they need two card slots, they don't actually need two card slots. So we'll talk about that. I'm not going to delve into all that tonight. So anyway, Steve, that's kind of some of the stuff that I really want to get into. And honestly, my other guilty pleasure this year is, fingers crossed, as I was mentioning with Mike, hoping that they do have a visionary summit this year. And bring all the visionaries together, because I would love the opportunity to shoot with guys like Jamie and Mike. I would probably be like a kid in a candy shop if I had the opportunity to shoot with people like Jay Dickman or Larry Price, Pulitzer Prize winners. But honestly, any one of the visionaries, I would love to show. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with Tracy McGlosky and with Scott Bourne at the conventions and the trade shows while we're doing speaking. I would love to be able to shoot with them. So for me, that's, I think, my biggest thing this year. Okay, that was a really long answer, but that's kind of what I'm after. Okay. So let's see here. Nick, I'm going to see you on Monday. That's awesome, Nick. Yeah, I'm going to be down. For those of you that live in the Baltimore or even Philadelphia area, Monday evening. So this is January 7th, 7 o'clock. You can get the information on my website. In fact, here, I'll switch the screen over. I will be speaking in Easton, Maryland at the Tidewater Camera Club, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see here. Yep, I'm going to be talking about the psychology and the techniques behind photographing beauty. Okay, so that's this coming Monday night. And then for those of you that are attending here, we'll get all this business stuff out of the way real quick. For those of you that are attending Imaging USA, that's coming up the end of the month. I'll be doing my talk on Tuesday morning, the 22nd. It's about marketing. Build your personal brand and build your business. Your clients hire you, not your camera. They don't care if it's a Nikon or a Sony or a Canon or an Olympus. They just don't care. They care actually about you. And believe it or not, they care more about you than they actually care about your photographs. So that'll be my talk. It's a platform talk that'll be happening. So it's not on an Olympus stage. It's part of the conference at Imaging USA. And I'll be down there for 2 days. I'll be there on Monday, mostly in the afternoon, walking around, checking things out, hopefully get to meet up with some people. And then Tuesday, I'll be doing that talk. And then after that, got a talk right near home here, just outside of Philadelphia, in Bristol, Pennsylvania, also about creativity. And then in February, of course, WPPI. So I hope a lot of you are going to make it out to Vegas, WPPI. And come on, it's Vegas, right? So why would you not go to WPPI? I mean, come on, right? So anyway, so that's coming up. So Nick, to your question about are there other ways to support me? Yes, you can support me via PayPal. And I appreciate that. If you check the links underneath the video, there is a PayPal link right there that you can use. Okay. Let's see. Dan, TSA will almost always take you aside to search your camera gear. I know from experience when I traveled to 35 states. Well, you know, interesting enough, Dan, I didn't travel to 35 states in the last year, but I traveled to about 14 states in the last year. I only had my bag pulled aside once. So I would encourage people watch that video that I put the link to, because I have a lot of tips in there that will help prevent getting your bag pulled aside. A lot of it comes down to how you pack the bag. If you pack the bag TSA friendly, then in all likelihood, it will not get pulled aside. Okay. James Tehan, how I like the Pen F. I love the Pen F. It's a fun camera for me. Obviously, I don't really use it in the studio, but for a carry around camera, yes, the Pen F frequently goes out with me, and it goes out with the 17. I love the 17. It's definitely a fun lens. Yeah. Perlugi, unfortunately, I won't be able to videotape those talks. You have to understand that when I'm getting paid to go speak, they're paying to have me come, so we don't always get to videotape them. Sometimes I'm able to, but these ones coming up, I don't. Last year, I was able to videotape my talk at WPPI. Olympus was very gracious to allow that to happen. I will ask, provided that I can arrange to have someone there to do the videotaping, I will ask to get permission again to do that this year, and as long as everything goes okay, and I'm pretty sure they'll say yes, I will go ahead and I will record my WPPI talk. So I record them when I can, but not always. So, okay. Sandra, and maybe bring some super fans along. Sandra, I would love to, but I do hope I make it down to Fort Worth so that I get to see you again. Fingers crossed, right? We'll see what happens with that. Okay. I would love to come to Sweden, Daniel. We'll have to see. Okay. The worst part of it is the overseas talks are a challenge. And it's all got to do with taxes and visas and getting paid and, you know, everything else. So yeah, I mean, if the right opportunity comes along, I would certainly love to be able to do that. So, Gian, am I going to bring back the website reviews? Maybe. It's the most honest answer I will give you. The challenge I had with the marketing TogChat. So for those of you that don't know, I used to do TogChat 3 days a week. Yeah. And like nobody watched it. So one day was an image review where I reviewed 5 images. One day was Q&A, kind of like what we do now. And then the third day was a marketing one where I did a website review and that type of stuff. there was a group of people that loved it and were religious about watching it, but yeah, I was getting about 150 viewers, period, like done, and that was it. And as much as I love the 150 people that were watching, it's hard to justify that, you know, in the big picture. So I will tell you, Gian, that if you check out my Patreon, or if you visit my website, you can actually schedule one-on-one consultations. So let me just bring this up here. If you have a website that you need help with and you're looking to get it reviewed, you could schedule a 1-hour consultation with me where I can do a full website review for you, help you out with your marketing plans, etc. So that's definitely an option. So I don't want to say it'll never come back to TogChat, but I don't have any immediate plans. So that's definitely a possibility. But as you guys know, if you've been following me for a while, I like to mix things up and you know, try out new stuff along the way. So it's always a possibility. Steve, I would love to come out to the Midwest. I know that there have been people trying to get me to come out to Oklahoma to Bedford Camera. So fingers crossed. The best way to make that happen, Steve, is tell your local photo retailer. As long as they are an Olympus retailer, you got to go hound them. And they have to hound their Olympus rep, okay? If they hound the Olympus rep and say, hey, we need this guy to come out here and do a talk, we do a workshop, that's how it gets going, okay? So it's not like they get to ask and it's automatic, but, you know, that's how it gets going, okay? Adam, I will be doing image reviews in the Facebook group soon, but I'm not going to give a date that I will miss because I've said soon before. I had to get some of this stuff out of the way before I can really go back to doing the Facebook Live, but we will do it. It really sucks because Facebook made a lot of changes in the live setup, which really limit the ability to do the kinds of things that we used to do. Just makes it a lot harder now. But yeah, we will be doing image reviews for sure. Okay. All right. So let's see here. I'm just looking to see if you guys got more questions here, or if I am finishing early. So let's see. We got a couple of things here that look like they're follow-ups to questions, but let me make sure. So Dave had a question here. Just picked up the 25 f1.2 Pro, cool lens. Shot with it for the first time last night. Love the results so far. Any tips, tricks, or quirks I should keep in mind? You mostly go for portraits, location in your very small home studio. So, well, the only thing I would say in terms of tip, trick, or quirk, I would call it mostly a quirk, but not a quirk of the lens, a quirk of the focal length. Okay, so obviously I'm a portrait shooter too, so I do portrait stuff. My go-to portrait lens is a 45 f1.2. I love that focal length. It's a 90 millimeter full frame equivalent. As you heard me talk about it a little bit earlier, I sometimes will use the 75 millimeter f1.8, but the 25 is just a little short. So I'm not saying you can't do portraits with it. I'm not saying that it's bad for portraits, but do understand, if this is your subject, if you get too close, you are going to start to give that person a big nose. You're going to start to create a little bit of distortion. So just respect the fact that it's a short lens and make sure you're not getting super, super close to your subject, because you're going to run the risk of creating some distortion if you do that. Okay. But other than that, awesome lens, insanely sharp. You know, it's great focal length with 1.2. You can get some really, really nice, you know, bokeh in the background. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's a great lens to work with. Okay. So, all right, let me just scroll back up here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Well, wait, I have one other question here that came in earlier. John Edward had a question. And again, I got a couple minutes, guys. If you want to sneak one or two more questions in, go for it. His question was, we know that many people rely on dynamic range for the wrong reasons, kind of like the fix it in post mentality. You know, if it's underexposed or overexposed, I can fix it later. But his question is, what are the real benefits of it for both outside and studio work if one properly exposes the image? Okay. So that's a great question, because it's a question that has so many layers to the answer. So just to give a little bit of context, I had made some comments in some previous talk chats about some of the YouTube videos that had hit talking about how great dynamic range is because you can underexpose by 3 stops and then pull it up in post and, you know, everything looks wonderful. And I'm not a big fan of doing that at all. I think that's actually a very, very poor practice. Are there situations where it could be useful? Yeah, but as a habit, as a rule, as a guideline, no. That is not how the cameras are designed to be made or to be used. That is not the idea, and that is not why we have dynamic range. So if you're old enough like me to remember the film days, back in the film days, we had something called latitude. And basically latitude was how much could you overexpose or underexpose an image on film and still have a workable image to print. So transparency film, slide film, had little to no latitude, especially Kodachrome. Kodachrome was not forgiving at all. You better nail your exposures with Kodachrome. Otherwise, you just had an image that either had a lot of blown out area or a lot of just pitch black, no detail shadow area, right? Color negative film was the one where latitude really came into conversation much, much more often. And the idea behind that is, let's take it outdoors on a bright, sunny afternoon. You're shooting a wedding, right? So you got a bride in a white dress. It's sunny outside, which means you're going to need to underexpose that image slightly or the white dress is going to blow out. When you underexpose it slightly, then the problem you have is your shadow areas start to get dark and they start to block up. If the film has 2 or 3 stops of latitude, because that's, you know, a really good latitude was 2 or 3 stops. Obviously, dynamic range now is like 13, 14, 15 stops, right? But 2 or 3 stops is really good. Then you knew that you could not expose to exactly where you needed the dress. You're going to let the dress overexpose by about a half a stop, but you would have enough latitude in the film to be able to bring out the detail in the shadow areas when it was printed, okay? Those are the reasons why you use dynamic range. It's a problem-solving thing more than anything else, but not a rule thing. If you've got really contrasting lighting and you need to make sure you don't lose your highlights, don't lose your shadow detail, that's where dynamic range comes into play, okay? Robert Julian, yes, I've been asked this before. This question is so beat and so dead, and unfortunately your information is incorrect, Robert. His question here says, probably been asked before, but with Panasonic rumored to come out with a full-frame mirrorless soon. So let's get our facts straight. No fake news here, right? Panasonic is not rumored to come out with a full frame. Panasonic is coming out with a full frame. They have officially, publicly announced that. So that's happening, right? Okay. So is this an indication of the end of Micro Four Thirds? That would be a big no. It is not an indication of the end of Micro Four Thirds, because if you also follow the news, not the rumor mills, not all the idiots that are pixel peepers griping because they just don't like Micro Four Thirds, okay? Olympus is committed to only making Micro Four Thirds cameras. Olympus is committed to an ecosystem that is based on mobility and high quality imagery and gear, period, okay? They have been very forthright about that. They have been very direct about that. You got to understand when, you get companies like Panasonic that are putting out Micro Four Thirds and full frame, they're taking all that research and development that they had and now they're splitting it, which means that the full frame is not getting all the benefits of its research and development, and the Micro Four Thirds is not getting all the benefits of its Micro Four Thirds of its research and development. And if you've paid attention, Panasonic has made it very clear they are not abandoning Micro Four Thirds either. So contrary to what my friends in Connecticut say, Micro Four Thirds is not dead. Micro Four Thirds is not dying. Mark my words. Put this on a headline. 5 years from now, if we're having this conversation, you're going to see that a large portion of the photography community has gone away from full frame, gone away from medium format, gone away from APS-C, and moved to Micro Four Thirds because it makes more sense on so many levels. Take that to the bank, okay? So, John Broderick. Now all the questions come flying in. It's almost time to quit here, right? Can you tether Olympus with Capture One and Olympus Capture? Yes, you can. But let's get the language right, just so I don't confuse anybody, okay? You cannot tether Olympus with Capture One. You can process Olympus files in Capture One. So Capture One supports the .orf raw files. It does not support Olympus cameras for tethering. So the way you use it all together is you use Olympus Capture to tether, which, by the way, Olympus Capture is a boatload faster than Capture One in terms of the download. And Olympus Capture is light years faster than Lightroom in terms of the download and the rendering, right? So you use Olympus Capture to do the tethering, and then you use Capture One to do the processing. And all you do is a super simple process. It's literally 2 clicks. 3 clicks, sorry. You go into Capture One and you set a hot folder. And then basically you just navigate to the folder where you're dropping the images off of Olympus Capture, and they will automatically pop up in Capture One. As the images are populated into that folder, they pop up in Capture One. Boom, super simple. So it's very easy to do. It's not a problem at all. So let's see. Alexander, have I discussed the Glow Easy Lock modifiers yet? Is there anything people should be aware of them? Glow Easy Lock. I'm not sure what you mean by Glow Easy Lock, Alexander. I'm sorry. So I can't tell you. I don't have any of the Glow brand modifiers, but I don't know what the Easy Lock is. If it's a Bowen's mount, then they're great. But yeah, beyond that, I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with them. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going back to Dave. All right, so you're in a small space in Japan. It's 25 is great. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, by no means, Dave, I don't want to make it seem like you picked the wrong lens. You asked for tips or things to be aware of. So the only thing you want to be careful is don't get too close. That's the biggest thing, okay? You get too close, you can pick up some distortion, but beyond that, no, 25 is gorgeous lens. So, Jens, do I shoot film nowadays? Film is a 4-letter word. Remember what your mama taught you. Don't use 4-letter words. No, I don't shoot any film. I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I learned on film. I am not one of those photographers that believes you're a better photographer if you learn on film. No. Good learning requires patience. Film forced the patience, right? But no, you can learn photography just as well in digital, as you did on film. But no, I don't do any at this point, at all. So, okay. Let's see, Perlugi. Copy byte per byte to PC is faster than tethering. I'm not sure exactly what that says, but I'll take your word on it. Okay. All right, gang. So listen, we are at a couple minutes past our 90-minute mark here. So next week, I have another guest, and then we're going to change it up a little bit. At the suggestion, at what I actually think is a really good suggestion of one of our viewers here tonight, Mr. Steve Wilking, I'm going to start bringing on guests every other week after next week, so that in between I can introduce this guest to you, introduce their work to you, give you an opportunity to kind of check them out, learn a little bit about them, so that we get a lot more questions that are geared towards their style of photography. And we've got some really cool guests lined up. As I've told you guys before, it's not all Olympus visionaries, so don't worry. It's not going to turn into the Olympus show, okay? But I am going to introduce you to all the visionaries because these are photographers that I think are absolutely incredible. And that brings us to next week. And next week is a visionary that I share something in common with, and that is the newest visionary along with myself, Kelly Cox. Kelly Cox is a sports shooter, guys. She shoots pro sports and college sports. Pro sports and college sports actually for USA Today. So if you read USA Today, whether it's online or in print, you routinely see her photographs from the Bay Area in California. But I know she was also just down in New Orleans covering the bowl game down there. So she's all over the place. Amazing work, amazing portfolio. Kelly has agreed to be on with us next week. So look forward to that. And then next week, I will tell you who our guests will be in 2 weeks down the road. And in between, I'll still be doing TogChat, and we'll be doing, all our Q&A and that. But yeah, we're going to try and mix things up a little bit here just to give you guys a little bit more time to kind of get to know some of these photographers, and also to be able to come in. What I love about what took place tonight, not to give you guys feedback, but a lot of you know of Mike and Mike's work and know that he's a street shooter. So there were a lot of great questions that were geared towards his style of shooting tonight. And that's exactly what I want to be able to bring to you guys is, you know, people from all different areas of photography. And my hope is over time that what you're going to start to realize is that as you listen closely, just like you heard tonight, like Mike and I had a similar start in photography. What you're going to start to hear is that, you know, it doesn't really matter what kind of photography that you're going to do. If you're going to get good at it and if you're going to have any kind of longevity at it, you will follow similar paths as other photographers. Good photography is good photography, period, right? So anyway, that being said, let's see here. Alexander, the Glow Easy Lock modifiers. Glow's answer to the photos behind you. Oh, no, so the whole modifier, haven't tried them at all. But Nick, taking called-in questions by phone. The problem with me taking a call-in question by phone, Nick, is that people in YouTube world can't hear it. There's no easy way for me to do that through the computer. So yeah, I won't do them by phone. There is the ability, I'm not going to do this right away, but there is the ability to actually have viewers come on board, just like I had Mike or have my guests come on board. There's a way for me to share a link during the show and have people check in. So we may do a little bit of that down the road and give some viewers the opportunity to kind of partake in some of the interviewing and that type of stuff. But one last question here. Dan asked, a good ultra wide for micro four third. If we're talking in the Olympus ecosystem, I love the 7-14 zoom. That is probably like one of my favorite lenses. Super, super awesome. The 8mm fisheye is a great lens, especially when you factor in that you've got the fisheye correction software capabilities in camera with the EM1 Mark II, which I really enjoy. But yeah, I would say, like, you know, if you're looking for a short zoom, the 7-14 is like awesome. Okay. All right, gang. So that being said, time for me to say goodbye. I will encourage all of you. It's a new year. I know a lot of the blogs have been publishing articles, you know, 52-week challenges, picture a day challenges, how to keep your creativity alive, yada, yada, yada. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say bull to all of that stuff. That's like the equivalent of making the New Year's resolution, right? It just is. We don't keep New Year's resolutions. Here's my take on that stuff, and it's a practical take. If you need a program to make you pick up the camera, if you need a program to keep you interested in your photography, if you need a program to keep you motivated in your photography, sell your damn cameras and save the money and go do something else because you're looking at the wrong stuff. Period. Right? If you're passionate about what you're doing, if you're passionate about taking pictures, if you are passionate about learning, if you're passionate about it, it's never hard to find the time. It's never hard to pick up the camera. It's never hard to come up with ideas. So my advice to all of you, because the one thing I do know is you're all serious about learning and improving. So instead of looking forward with some crazy guideline that you've got to try and live up to, and then it just becomes a nuisance, because believe me, the minute photography is work, that's when it starts to not become fun, right? So let's not make photography fun. But better yet, my advice to you is to look backwards. In so many areas of life, we can learn so much about the future and what the future holds by referring to history and looking backwards. So what I encourage all of you to do, take a look back at 2018. Take a look back at what did you accomplish? Take a look back at what did you do well? Take a look back at what things did you do that exceeded your expectations? And more importantly, what did you suck at? What things did you try and fail at? Honest evaluation. What do you need to improve on? What is it going to take for you to make it to that next level or to reach your goal? That is time well spent. Creating yourself a 365-day challenge or a project to shoot, or any of that kind of stuff, no, that's just giving yourself work to do. That's not fun, and that's not learning. If it worked, they wouldn't have to keep publishing those articles every single year because people would just automatically do it. It would be such a commonplace thing, such an obvious thing, that the blogs would not have to bombard us with the same crappy articles and suggestions every single January. Look backwards. Self-evaluate. If you're not motivated, sell your camera. Save yourself the money and the stress. But if you're motivated, go back and evaluate the passion. What makes you pick up the camera in the first place? How did you do well? How did you do not well? What do you need to improve on? That gives you your roadmap. That gives you the roadmap so that every time you pick up the camera, so that every time you decide you want to shoot, you've got that little bug in your mind that says, you know what? I need to really pay more attention to my backgrounds. Or you know what? I need to really pay more attention to my lighting or to my posing or to the details. And it helps you improve. The best thing that you can do to help your photography in 2019, number one, look at what you did in 2018. Number two, go pick up that camera and shoot something. Because your best shot, it's your next shot. Have a great week, gang.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something. Because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.